The internet was ablaze with excitement when it was revealed that Jim Jones had just released a brand new covert wedding video. However, no one anticipated that Chrissy Elkin's startling response happened shortly after the video was made public. Backstage sources claim her fell in sobs and broke down totally. This wasn't your average viral video or marketing gimmick. It was a personal matter. The kind of hurt that results from being betrayed and realizing that the person you may have passed a line that you can't go back from after standing by for years. Even though the opening video was brief, it was enough to set the whole thing off. Jim Jones was spotted grinning as someone congratulated him on his wedding in a poorly lit room with a few close acquaintances. He agreed, chuckled, and said that this time it would be official. In a few minutes, every frame was being dissected by bloggers. The meaning was being debated by fans, and there were allegations that Jim had secretly married a different person. Chrissy went crazy at that point. Insiders claim that when the footage appeared online, she was backstage at a recording. She was shown the video by one of her helpers, and she reportedly became still before losing it, according to witnesses. According to reports, she repeatedly said, "He assured me we were staff had to accompany her out, and she passed out shortly after from the tension. She was assisted out of the venue on video that night after paramedics were called right away." Looked inconsolable. Fans are already want explanations. Actually, who was Jim? About in that video? Did he really move on and get married? Or was it just an old tape coming back to haunt him? Fresh? Because Chrissy's whole world has just been completely upended if it's true. Chrissy Lampkin was meant to have a typical night. She was at a fashion show backstage. Event in New York, poised and composed as usual, getting ready for a quick appearance. However, after a few minutes, the whole planet would collapse in front of everyone. When one of her stylists entered and called in, it all began, hand, shaking and pale-faced. She said, "Chrissy, have you seen this?" Chrissy was anticipating a frivolous rumor or another blog post when she answered the phone, but what she saw made her knees collapse. A recently posted Platt video was shown on the screen. In a black outfit, Jim Jones stands next to a tiny private ceremony with an unidentified lady. There was only silent laughter and the obvious, without any crowds or glitz. The sound of "congratulations to the newlyweds." Jim grinned and moved in to give the couple a kiss. "It was time I did this right." The video ended then, but it was all that was required. In a matter of minutes, it was widely shared on fan sites, gossip blogs, and Twitter threads that were ablaze with rumors. As Chrissy watched, her hands started to tremble. Her breathing increased and her chest constricted. Shallow, and the space whirled. It was obvious to all around her that something was amiss. Her disturbed expression that spoke for itself without using words took the place of the serene composure. Her lifelong companion, Talia, hurried up to her side and attempted to remove the phone, but Chrissy refused to let go. "This isn't real," she said, whispered, but it was. "That can't be real." Each blog verified that Jim's verified account was the source of the video. According to the caption, "Only for words, genuine love, eternal love." Backstage descended into mayhem. Whispers were exchanged, cell phones were used, and everyone attempted to process what they had just seen. The same guy who had seen Chrissy Hood get engaged and had spent more than 10 years saying he wasn't ready was now standing next to another lady in what seemed to be a wedding ceremony, which had been seen to him on national television but had not yet been officially announced. Chrissy slammed the door behind her as she staggered into the dressing room. Her pals attempted to soothe her, but she was quickly losing her mind. The treachery struck her like a punch to the body. Like scenes from a movie, she relived years of grief, patience, and devotion. Each and every time he repeated, "J. Chrissy, it's always been you." She believed him, and she defended him. Everything seemed like falsehoods now. The video was exploding outside even more. Chrissy was being tagged by fans. Constantly, with some supporting her and others making fun of the circumstance. Jim eventually got married, but it wasn't Chrissy. There was one comment. "This is karma," another commented. "She waited too long." Even famous people began to react, with one reality star saying, "There are times when we build men who were never meant to stay." Jim Jones, however, said nothing at all. Nothing except that one video and its enigmatic caption. No postings, no explanations, no comments. A few supporters started looking for the lady next to him. A few grainy pictures of her appeared online within hours. Before that week, a long-haired black lady wearing a gold bracelet that some claim to have seen in a narrative Jim posted months before was observed leaving a hotel. Back. Whether it was genuine or not, the internet started to link the dots. And shortly, there were a lot of hypotheses. A dot. There, Chrissy sat glumly on a chair at the gathering. As her staff attempted to persuade her to go discreetly, tears streaked her makeup. One of them softly said, "You don't need to be here right now." Chrissy, however, just gazed at the wall. She said under her breath, "He knew I was here tonight." Take a breath. He knew exactly what this would do to me. Her body gave up just as she was about to go. According to witnesses, she abruptly fainted, and her team scurrying to get her before she falls. The room exploded in fear as soon as someone dialed 911. Chrissy was weak, but aware when paramedics came, sobbing quietly and grasping her chest. As reporters attempted to take pictures through the mob, they led her out the rear exit. A dot outside. The night was lit by flashing lights. The murmurs increased in volume. "Have you heard?" After seeing Jim's wedding video, Chrissy passed out. The news was trending by the time she arrived at the ambulance. Chrissy Lampkin passes out shortly after the release of Jim Jones's covert wedding film. The headline was the same across all blogs. It was more than simply public humiliation or disgrace for Chrissy. It concerned the last break in a love tale that had been put to the test too many times previously. In her heart, she had always thought Jim would arrive. After all that had happened to them, he would at last put things right. But that expectation was dashed after seeing the footage. Entirely. She was silent on the way to the hospital. She was held by her pal, Hand, looking through her phone in search of some indication that this was all a mistake, but she couldn't find any. Jim had left the post up. Actually, he had pinned it to his page's top, a dot. Everyone was buzzing about the video, which had received over 3 million views by midnight. Some said it was a gimmick for a forthcoming performance. Some thought it was genuine. All of it didn't matter to Chrissy, however. The guy she had supported throughout public altercations and prison rumors. A never-ending heartache had just shown to the world that he was capable of doing for her what he never did. Make a commitment. Chrissy spoke one more thing to her pal as the ambulance drew away. He was still able to break after all these years. Was it an intentional, perverse effort to establish the straight record after months of hostility between them? He desired to take charge of the story before Chrissy did. He was surprised by the reaction. Fans were perplexed as well as outraged. One person wrote, "Why would you release a wedding video without her?" Another commented, "Is this a joke? Chrissy has been faithful for years, and this is how you treat her?" In the meanwhile, the unidentified lady in the video rose to prominence on the internet as new fixation. Every gossip site started looking for her identity as screenshots went viral. Some said she was someone from the movie, while others believed it was a publicity hoax, maybe including an actor or an old video footage. Jim's history. She had even been seen with him months before, according to one blogger. Chrissy secretly entered the same studio to tape her hip-hop and love confessionals. The narrative was disorganized, and nobody was sure what to trust. Chrissy eventually recovered consciousness back at the hospital. Her first remarks were thick and murmured, "Don't let him arrive." A close source claims that after learning of the fall, Jim had attempted to pay her a visit, but Chrissy had turned him down. She wanted clarification, but not from him. She wanted to know the truth, and she wanted to do it in public. Hours later, her PR. In a brief statement, the representative requested privacy at a sensitive and private moment. However, the supporters were aware of that was a secret word meaning heartache. Supporters of Chrissy bombarded her page with comments pleading with her to break up with Jim once, as well as for everyone. "You're worthy of better. This man has been playing with your," one person commented, "heart for too long." However, Chrissy's quiet spoke more than words. She removed every photo of the two of them together, unfollowed Jim on all social media, and even published a mysterious tale. Love may be the most perilous deception. The internet was rocked by just one statement alone. No one recognized how. However, those who paid careful attention saw a change. He wasn't as arrogant or boisterous. His eyes were heavy behind them, as if he realized he had gone too far away. He only said, "Y'all believe what you want," in response to questions from TMZ reporters about the footage. That single sentence sparked yet another round of conjecture. "I know what's real." By that, what did he mean? Was the video authentic, phony, or a combination of both? Then, as if nothing could. Unfortunately, another video emerged, this time capturing Chrissy sobbing on stage just before she passed out. The Ann employee was heard yelling, "After all these years, you embarrass me like this," in a video clip shot from her phone. It went viral right away before going down, and it was the most popular video on the internet for hours. Admirers criticized Jim for being emotionally brutal and demanded that he accept responsibility. However, Jim's team remained silent, declining to participate in what they referred to as manufactured drama. Behind the scenes, however, pals said he was conflicted. According to an insider, Jim had really captured the wedding video months before for a documentary project, intended to be symbolic rather than actual. According to reports, the lady in the film was only an actor and served as a visual representation of the kind of connection he hoped he might have with Chrissy in a different scenario. However, when someone from his without providing context, Inner Circle released it online, causing irreparable harm. Chrissy had lost interest in explanations. There was no longer any trust. She had left their shared house by the time Jim attempted to contact her once again. She was seen with a few buddies, head down, carrying baggage. She didn't say anything. However, her face told it all. This was more than simply a split. It marked the conclusion of an agonizingly lengthy chapter. After beginning with such promise and intensity, the love tale eventually burnt itself up. Out. The rest of the cast was also responding in the meanwhile. A few defended, "I've given Jim every opportunity to be the man she deserves," Chrissy said. Others said that there was more to the tale, something more profound that hadn't been revealed yet. To light yet. According to one producer, Croy had been preparing to make a major announcement before the crash, a return project that would reveal a whole different side of her. However, that future suddenly seemed doubtful. However, few anticipated the speed at which the roles would be reversed. Since the internet was pronouncing Jim the villain, another startling video, and a hidden voicemail purportedly left by Chrissy weeks before, in which she confessed long before the video was revealed, she was thinking about leaving. It was sincere and passionate, but it was also, according to her voice, "I can't keep fighting for a man who won't fight for me," she said. Debate was rekindled by the footage. Had she finally let go because of Jim's wedding farce, or had it been a response to losing her? One painfully obvious thing emerged as the dust cleared. They were both broken into. In many ways, Chrissy had lost the fantasy she'd been living, and Jim had lost the woman who had supported him through everything, pursuing for years. However, there were still unresolved issues, suspicions of secret video, and hints that more was approaching. Because nothing ever ends gently in their world. This narrative was far from finished. Following Chrissy's fall, the days were filled with sadness, rumors, and headlines. Jim was already portrayed as the villain and her as the victim on the internet. However, behind the scenes, things were much more intricate. With a small group of friends at her side who forbade anybody from getting close, Chrissy was recuperating in peace. Her. No press, no cameras, no producers. Even if she had silenced everything, the world continued to speaking. Every YouTube channel, podcast, and blog was breaking down the video pixel by frame, discussing whether was Jim's covert wedding video authentic. Chrissy no longer cared about any of it. She wasn't considering the producers of the program pleading with her for a comment or gossip websites. She was reflecting on the years she had given him, the devotion, the sacrifices, and the never-ending waiting for something he never truly returned. The video wasn't the only thing that hurt. The realization that she had been battling for a goal that was never hers to keep. She was quiet yet concentrated, even icy according to friends. She has stopped weeping. She's plotting, according to one source, Jim Jones, meanwhile, seemed to disappear from the highlight entirely. No interviews, no appearances, no social media posts, just quiet. According to some, he traveled to Miami in order to decompress. Others said that he was engaged in a new musical endeavor. That would provide his perspective. However, the harm had already been done. Each time the video was seen, each when the other woman's visage showed up. The myth of the romance between Jim and Chrissy began to fall apart even further. The power couple of hip-hop had turned into the most recent warning about ego, celebrity, and unfulfilled promises. Then, just when everyone believed that everything had subsided, a new video clip appeared. A behind-the-scenes footage of Jim and a speaking with his producer in the studio. Despite not being intended for public consumption, the talk somehow made its way out. "I didn't claim it was genuine. It was art," Jim was heard to comment. "Although I couldn't pretend indefinitely, I was attempting to give her what she wanted." Those remarks were more powerful than the actual wedding video. Supporters were split. While some perceived it as a self-justification attempt, others thought it was the admission. A guy who loved Chrissy but was unsure of how to fulfill her desires. According to insiders, Chrissy didn't even flinch when she saw the tape. She only nodded and mutely said, "That's precisely who he is." That one sentence conveyed all the information that everyone needed. She had stopped waiting for him. She was finished. In a week, she said that in order to focus on a new business endeavor, she would be relocating to Los Angeles, something that was unrelated to have to do with the past, the gym, or love. She was selecting herself for the first time in years. Fans were taken aback by the revelation, particularly when she made her public debut a few days later, appearing bright, self-assured, and unrestrained. Once characterized by grief, the lady was now entering a new period alone, but at last with serenity. Nevertheless, the narrative persisted. Jim remained silent until a late-night post, despite his supporters' demands for explanations and a public apology, showed up on his page. It was an old black-and-white picture of Chrissy with the straightforward words, "Forever means something unique for every individual." The comment section erupted. A few termed it an apology. Others said it was just another method to escape accountability. For those who knew Jim well, however, it was his way of acknowledging that he had lost the only person who ever had genuine faith in him. Mutual friends made an effort to reunite them behind the scenes. Whispers were heard about intimate phone talks, heartfelt late-night discussions, and even a meeting that almost took place but didn't. Reopening old wounds was not something Chrissy was interested in. "If love means losing yourself, I don't want it," she said, informed a buddy. Thousands more women who identified with her experience shared the comment after it went viral. Her tale resonated with many more women. The creators of the program, recognizing the wave of attention, made a bold attempt to entice her back by offering her complete creative power and an opportunity to speak her mind. Chrissy, however, declined. She wasn't attempting to change her history or win compassion. Quietly reconstructing her life, she was concentrating on herself rather than the pandemonium. She started collaborating with charitable organizations, guiding young ladies and creating her own business. She was happier than she had been, according to those close to her. In years, there was still no word about Jim. His music began to play, darker and more introspective. Everyone's attention was drawn to one song in particular, an internet leak of an unreleased song. "I gave her diamonds, but I couldn't give her peace. She wanted forever," he summed it up. Fans recognized right away who it was about, and I was stranded on the streets. It was honest, heartfelt, and unvarnished. Perhaps for the first time, Jim had really accepted responsibility via his art. However, the world had already made up its mind, and it was too late. Then, weeks later, someone published the whole version, which was the greatest twist of all. Regarding the covert wedding footage, which showed Jim standing by himself at the altar after the ceremony, taking off his ring and declaring, "This is how love turns into a performance forever." The lady next to him wasn't a bride. Rather, she was a component of a visual idea that served as a metaphor for how expectations and celebrity may had ruined his relationship. The story suddenly took a different turn. Perhaps he wasn't making fun of Chrissy after all. Perhaps that had been his way of saying sorry, but the truth was no longer important. The public wasn't willing to forgive him, and Chrissy had already moved on. The video could have been metaphorical, but the harm to her heart was genuine.